This is Church of Uganda Family TV, enriching lives. Issues at hand on Family TV, enriching lives.
This is a Church of Uganda Family TV and you are watching Issues at Hand. Thank you for joining us. My name is Bruno Edgard as always, and today I am joined by two amazing guests who are going to take us through climate change and what we can do about it. We are seeing very many effects of climate change, floods, and a lot of degradation, environmental degradation that is claiming lives and property. So we are going to tackle this issue today on Issues at Hand. Now my guests today, I have Mr. Kalema Abubakar, who is a senior meteorologist at Uganda National Meteorological Authority, and then I have Mr. William George, the manager forecasting services at Uganda National Meteorological Authority. Thank you for being here and accepting our invitation to come on Issues at Hand.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Now I know for me personally, when I was young, I went once to the meteorological center, and I remember it was a school trip, and we were being taught about what happens there and what the meteorological authority does. But for those of us who may not know, what is the mandate of the Uganda National Meteorological Authority? What does it do, and how does it impact our lives as Ugandans?
Thank you. Bruno, to go straight, Uganda National Meteorological Authority is a government agency charged with the responsibility of monitoring the climate and the weather all over the country and issuing also early warning information to the public. It is also an institution which is mandated to also look at the aspect, the one in charge of early warning. And the authority is supposed to work with all the agencies because it doesn't work as an autonomous bodies. It has to collaborate because when we come to the issue of the weather and the climate, we know that it affects all sectors of the economy. So the duty of the authority also, the mandate also to take charge of all the monitoring weather stations across the country. The third one is also to take charge of installation of all weather monitoring stations. It doesn't mean that other institutions cannot also install a weather monitoring station, but the moment they want to install, it means that they have to get authorization from the authority, that is Uganda National Meteorological Authority. So majorly, those are the key three mandates of the authority. One, I said monitoring the weather and climate all over the country and issue the early warning information to the government and all sectors of the economy. Then two, managing the installation of all weather monitoring stations in the country. Then three is the one in charge of installing all the weather monitoring stations all over the country. Thank you.
Mr. Kalema, do you have anything to add to that?
Maybe in addition to what Manager George has put out, the authority, the Uganda National Meteorological Authority, was established by an act of parliament that was in 2012, and we are under Ministry of Water and the Environment. We are a semi-autonomous body, and in addition to the mandate that George has put out, we are charged with making the forecast, that we forecast in different ranges, from 6-hourly forecast, we give daily forecasts, 5 days forecast, 10 days forecast, monthly forecasts, and seasonal forecast and climate information only generated. Like George has put it, we work with different institutions, different ministries to ensure that this information is out to the farmer and the local, local community members. Yes.
Fantastic. But that brings me to my first point of concern when it comes to issues at hand, and especially on the topic of climate change and its effects in Uganda. Now, Mr. William, you spoke about early warning. Mr. Kalema, you've spoken about forecasting. So did the authority give an early warning concerning the disaster that happened in Mbale? Because surely we have heard from the Prime Minister herself said that she was in Mbale 2 weeks prior to what happened, and it was known by the team that the riverbanks would have had an issue if the rains had come. So was there an early warning, and what was the response by the relevant authorities to the warning from the meteorological authority?
Thank you, Bruno. Well, as we stated earlier, and how my colleagues, Mr. Kalema, has also stated, that the authority generate early warning information in terms of the weather forecast on a different time scale. Daily, 6 hourly, there is also weekly, 10 days forecast, monthly forecast, then 3-month forecast. And sometimes they make the whole projection of the climate up to a maximum or more than 50 years. Now, if we are to come back to what had happened in Mbale, or the just recent rain, which caused a lot of havoc in most part of the country also, with the one which was so serious in Mbale, in our 10 daily forecast, it was well captured that within that particular 10 days, there is going to be heavy rainfall. You know, the country had been going through a serious, prolonged dry spell. And people were not expecting that rain would be coming very soon. But the regular forecast product we generate as an authority, the recent one for the 10 days clearly pick it up, and we issue that one out to the public. On addition to that, because this event happens on the rain which started on Saturday and continues up to Sunday. And for the case of Mbale, the rain started around 11 p.m. Saturday. Then it continues up to, it started at 10 p.m. Saturday. Then it continues up to 11 a.m. in the morning. On our Saturday daily forecast, the one Uganda National Meteorological Authority issued, it was very clear we issued that there is going to be very extreme rainfall over Mbale and other parts of the countries. Because it was not only Mbale that received that rainfall heavily, but other parts of the country also received it heavily. But of course, there are factors which really initiated the massive disaster over Mbale. We are going to talk about it. So that early warning information was issued on a 10 days projection, and it was also issued on a 24 hours projection. So before the rain start, that indication, the early warning information was already out. Then the question was, did the people take it up? Of course, you know, Uganda, I can say human being in general, people are too slow in responding to early warning information. Sometimes they get it, but they said, since like for that particular case whereby people were in a dry state all over the country, then they said, now they are talking about rainfall. Is it really going to happen? Because we are not seeing any sign of the rainfall. So that one can give a slow response to people to act on the early warning information.
Actually,
and that
that's a good point, because does abroad in countries in the West like the US, whenever the authority that deals with weather forecast announces itself and says tomorrow there's going to be rain at this time, people take that information that we need to follow up the forecasts that are given by the authority, or do we take the authority for granted and think that, okay, maybe the forecasts that are being released are not, we don't trust them? Is it there's a lack of trust from the public to the authority, you think?
It is people, of course, there are some people who are not trusting the information which is being sent, but if you look at the developed countries like in the US, in other countries also in the UK, because the impact of weather is so pronounced on the local people. In that, people take it very seriously the moment early warning information is issued. But for us here in Uganda, sometimes the impact can be mild. Then we don't take it seriously. Even if we have issued, the National Meteorological Authority has issued the early warning, people don't take that information as a serious one. Because sometimes the information involves relocation. People have so much attachment into the land where they are sitting. Then they listen to that, they say, no, we cannot do this. Then those are some of the challenges we find in responding to this particular early warning.
Yes, Mr. Kalama, do you have anything to add to that? Especially when it comes to the response now, like Mr. William has mentioned, that as the members of the public, we don't want to listen to what the authority is telling us as far as weather forecasts are concerned. But what about the response from the relevant authorities of government, the Office of the Prime Minister and the Ministry of Disaster Preparedness? Why is it that they didn't heed the warnings from the authority?
Yes, thank you, moderator, for that wonderful question. Yes, as the authority, we're supposed to work with every institution of government. And wherever we issue out early warning information, we're supposed to work with the Office of Prime Minister, the Ministry of Water, the National Water and Sewage Corporation, Health Ministry, quite across, But you find that sometimes, like George has put it, there is that slow response. But all we have to do, or what we're trying, we're trying to work with every institution as much as possible. And now there is a new kind of forum that we are developing, most especially for the 3 months forecast. And this is a National Climate Outlook Forum. This forum will help us also to strengthen this collaboration between inter-institutions of government when it comes to early warning information, especially the seasonal forecast. Because this seasonal forecast, it informs so much the output that we shall get from different institutions. For example, in the agriculture and food security sector, you realize that we're supposed to, they're supposed to use this information to determine which crops the government is going to provide to the public. And for example, when should the farmers start planting their crops? All of those decisions, they are dependent on the forecast of the 3 months, how the 3 months are going to perform. So the issue of inter-institutional collaboration, really we're working very much, with different institutions. Our ED Executive Director is always engaging different, heads of different institutions to ensure that we really work more closer than currently we're working.
Definitely. And we have mentioned the problem of climate change. Now, I would like us to get into this discussion so that we understand what climate change is. For many of us, there are many skeptics of climate change in the world who are saying, climate change is a lie, it doesn't exist. But from what we are seeing here in Uganda, from the floods that happened in Mbale and in the region, one of the regions in Sebei, and then when we see the heat waves that are happening in Europe and in America, there is a real issue of climate change. Maybe we don't understand what climate change is. That's why some of us, many people out there, I'm not saying I'm one of them, because I know it's a very real issue, but many people don't understand climate change. So can you take us through what climate change is and some of the examples that we are seeing of climate change here, especially in Uganda?
Okay, thank you, Bruno, once again. Climate change. There is climate change and climate variability. Then there is also weather. So people normally confuse the three. Let me start with the weather. What is the weather? When we talk about the weather is what you see or what you feel. Like if you go outside, you look up, then you can see, like if it is rainy, then you can say it is rainy. That is a weather. If it is sunny, then that is also what? A weather. If it is the wind is blowing, we can call it windy. That is a weather. So weather meaning what is happening right now. whereby you can see with your own eyes and you can also feel it by your skin. But when we come to the climate change and climate variability. When we talk about the climate change, it means the change in the average condition of this weather. Because this weather must be averaged over a very long period of time. So we look at it, has it shifted negatively or positively? For example, when we talk about the rain, look back 30 years ago. Is the rain the same like currently? So if they are different, then that implies that there is a change in the climate of the place. Then when we come to the variability, when we talk about the climate variability, we look at it happens within like on a monthly basis or on a yearly basis. For example, last year we could be having a lot of rainfall over the country during the month of, I'm giving an example, during the month of March. Then we look at this particular year, that also a lot of rainfall in March. If not, meaning that one we cannot target to a climate change. That one we target to climate variability. So variation happen within a shorter period of time and changes happen over a longer period of time. Now, what shows that there is climate change over Uganda? There are very many. Number one, we can talk of the shifting of the onset. That is the beginning of the rainfall season. If you try to find out from the elders, many years who have been observing, particularly these people who have been practicing agriculture, they will tell you that those days rain begin by around or the 15th of March. That is the story they will tell you. By the 15th of March, rain will start immediately. But nowadays, you find that it can even start earlier, or it might even go up to the month of April. So that 15th of March, it is no longer the onset or the beginning of rainfall nowadays. So there we can now clearly tag that particular kind of change into the climate change. Number two, we can look at some of the tree species around. There are some of those tree species which were in existence in many parts of the countries, but nowadays, if you go there, you don't see any. Thirdly, we can look at, let me give a simple example, like if you go to southwestern Uganda, like Kabale. Kabale used to be an area which is a malaria-free zone, but nowadays, there is mosquito. What does it mean? Because there is a particular temperature that favor the multiplication of mosquito. Those days, it was so cold, so that mosquito cannot survive there. Just that malaria was something which was prominent. But nowadays, malaria is so common in Kabale, which used to be a malaria-free zone. So that one also we target to the climate change. We go and look at also the ice cap on Mount Rwenzori. The coverage was so big those days, but if we look at it nowadays, it has already reduced. What does it mean? The temperature has gone high, so it has started melting, meaning there is a change in the climate system. We can also look at the frequency of occurrence of drought and also flood over the country. I give an example of Mbale. I would like to tell the viewers that it doesn't mean that by then there was no flood over Mbale. It was there, but it might occur once in a while. But nowadays, almost every year, meaning the frequency has gone high. So that is an indication of change in the climate system. Thank you.
Thank you for taking us through that. And so, Mr. Kalema, please update us on what are the causes of these climate variations and the weather. Why are we seeing that, for example, like Mr. Williams said, that the snow cap of Mount Rwenzori is melting fast because the temperature is getting hotter? Why is it that in Kabale it's not as cold as it used to be? What are the causes?
Yes, thank you very much, moderator. And that question really, it has the causes. You know, these causes, they are both internal, in-country, and external, global. because when we talk of climate change, it's a global phenomenon that is affecting the entire globe, including, the topmost, individuals in the country and the lowest individuals in the country. So the question is, what is the cause, And the cause, like I say, they are those, global issues. And here we talk of the gases, these greenhouse gases. So there are quite a number of greenhouse gases, but the most prominent one is carbon dioxide. So this carbon dioxide, it comes from industries. When you look at pre-industrial, era, the before, 1800, how before the industries came into play in Europe or in America or Asia, even in Africa. So you find that these extremes that George has referred to, they were very to how they are currently, the impact. Well, and these, these greenhouse gases that have been put into the atmosphere, they've induced that human-made nature, the cause of the climate change and climate variability that we're talking about, and they've led to global warming. This global warming, the one which has led to increase in global temperatures, including the temperatures of Uganda, and that's how he came to cite the example of Mount Rwenzori ice on the the snow top, the mountain tops, getting melted. So it's as a result of what? The global warming. So even in Uganda here, we've also contributed from the industries that we have. When you emit those gases, they get into the atmosphere and they act as a blanket. Like we cover ourselves in a blanket at night. When you cover yourself, there's a way you feel warm when you've been cold, and you start warming and even start sweating, and then you end up even pushing the blanket away. So that is how these gases they really bring about the global warming, and leave alone in the industries, the gases from the industries. There are also other human-made, human-induced kind of causes, such as the deforestation. We've cut down most of the forests. Most of the trees have been cut down by our community members, by everyone, because in look of fuel. As we're looking for fuel, we end up destroying these trees. And the unfortunate bit is that when we cut, we don't replace. It would be great if we were cutting, and we replace, because we need fuel. You won't tell someone that you don't cut trees when it has nothing to use for cooking, the fuel. So that is one factor. That is the second factor, and there is also the swamps reclamation. We've cut down, we've destroyed, wetlands. We've settled in wetlands. We planted in wetlands. You find that most of the areas, most parts of the country, which were swamps, wetlands before, they've been destroyed. Look at very many, places that we have in the country, and the forests and the wetlands, how they contribute to the harmonization of the temperatures is that when these trees, the vegetation, it uses this carbon dioxide. This is the carbon dioxide we said is one of the gases that is emitted from the industries. So this carbon dioxide is used by these plants in making their food, So they turn it into oxygen, and then they release the oxygen. So these plants, they are very, very important in reducing these temperatures. So as we lose them, you find that these temperatures are continuing going high, because this carbon dioxide, it can't be absorbed from the atmosphere. So and another cause, there are also the natural causes, but those natural causes, they really take years, millions of years. You find that the way it's tilted, the journey, it rotates around, its axis. That's another science. From the sun, the solar system, the amount of energy it emits into the space, you find that it keeps on changing over years. So, but that one takes millions and millions of years. But for us, what we have, the human-induced causes, they are really very fast, and they act then, unlike the natural causes. Yes, thank you for that question.
Thank you for that very wonderful and very clear answer. And so my question is not to be a prophet of doom or gloom, but according to the Meteorological Authority, if I know you mentioned that you do weather forecasts on an hourly basis as well, on a daily basis, but are there details on from the data, according to the research being done by authority, about where our country is going concerning climate if it continues on the same path we are on?
Okay, thank you. As I stated before, we work in collaboration with other sectors of the economy. One of the key sectors is the Office of the Prime Minister, that is the Disaster Department. When we issue this early warning information, for them, the OPM has already mapped up area which is prone to disaster. Meaning, the moment we have given out a particular early warning information, then normally we have to take key interest in identifying this area which can easily impact either a flood or a drought. For example, if the early warning information given is on flood, which part of the country is so prone? We know mountainous region are the one, then the lowland area. So that is where focus is normally put the most. When we come about drought or prolonged dry spell, we know there are areas over the country which are so prone to those prolonged dry spells. So information is normally sent to them. How do we do it? There is linkages that we have developed with the government department, ministries, agencies, NGOs, civil society organization, the media, and the local government. So once we have generated this particular information, we don't send it only to the Office of the Prime Minister, we send it to all of these sectors because they can reach the end user within the shortest time possible. We also did a lot of training to the district technical officers. You know, some of from Uganda National Meteorological Authority, it is so scientific. And the science, sometimes for somebody who is not a scientist, cannot really digest it very clearly. So that the person can get to understand what it means and the kind of early warning for the action he has to take. So that particular linkages, it is now assisting us now. First, we identify an area which is prone to either a flood or drought. If the early warning information is on flood, then more emphasis will be put to this particular area so that the local people are informed in time. So that is how we do the coordination method, so that we are in that multi-stakeholders agency that we work together. Thank you.
Fantastic. And the authority doing to ensure that we do not have a problem of climate change, that we curtail this big problem of climate change, especially in our great nation, Uganda?
Yes, as the authority, we're really doing a lot. And this doing a lot is in terms of our mandate. Like our mandate was stated, we're supposed to predict and generate the climate early warning information, which includes to develop advisories. So once we have this, we really feel like we've really played our part as an authority. And after generating these forecasts plus advisories, then we have to ensure that this information reaches out to the final users. But as non-authority, for us, we are really working so much in ensuring that this climate early warning information is provided at a timely manner, and very accurate and reliable. In that when we tell you that it's going to rain, it's going to rain. When we tell you it will be a lot of rainfall, it will be really a lot of rainfall. We need that even our end users, they can demand whichever information they need. Then we are able to produce tailored information. This tailored information is very key and is very important to satisfy our end users, because once you can't satisfy the end users, you're not in business, you know. No one will come for your information. So that's why we're working so much in this era of climate change. We're working at ensuring, and one way we're doing that is the government is really providing so lot and investing a lot into this authority to ensure that we achieve this, you know, this mandate of generating very accurate, very reliable information for the end user.
Thank you. And I have an important question when it comes to forecasting, Mr. William. So we mentioned that there is forecasting hourly, daily, but do we have a forecast for the years to come, let's say 3 years down the road, about how our weather situation shall look like in this country? And if so, what does it say? Should we be prepared for more prolonged dry spells? Are we going to continue to have a problem with the floods and a lot of heat and temperature in our weather?
Thank you. I indicated earlier that the climate is changing. At the same time, it is also varying on a monthly, a yearly, and so on. So I also indicated that we do projection like for the whole, like for more than 50 years, that is a climate projection. And of course, you know, when we talk about the climate projection, we are much interested in seeing what is called the scenarios. That is based on what is happening. My colleagues have been stating it, Mr. Kalema, that the industrialization, which is bringing this kind of increase in temperature and also too much rainfall or reduced rainfall. But, so this one is to help the country or the world at large to try to see that whenever we continue with this kind of thing, then there is a possibility of going toward this particular direction. So in Uganda, you know, because of these changes and the variation of the weather and the climate, and Uganda being an agricultural country where the agriculture contributes to almost more than 70% of the GDP, we are so concerned, people are much concerned with the impact of this weather or the climate on their crops. Now, what do we do in this case? One, there are 3 forecast products, which is so good to look at this. Number 1, the 10 days projection. Then number 2, the 1 month projection. Then number 3 is the 3-month projection. Why do we do that? We are doing that because as an agricultural country, the rainfall pattern over the country is centered over in 2 seasons. Season 1 is the March, April, and May. Season 2 is the September, October, November. Though some part of the country, like in the northern and eastern, sometimes get rainfall during the June, July, and August. So people will be so much concerned in knowing what the rain will be during the rainfall season. Because during the dry season, there is less agricultural activity in that case. So that is where the authority is doing a lot of generating the forecast product, so that the advisories can really give a proper planning processes for the farmers to know where to start planting, what kind of crops to plant, and when to start weeding, and when to start harvesting. The 1 year's projection might not give a clear indication so much for a farmer to plan. Why? The reason is very clear, because in a year, there are months without rain, that is completely a dry month. Then there are some months with for rain, that is there is a lot of rain where agricultural activity is supposed to take place. So if you give a 1 year's forecast, then a farmer will not be in a position to identify which particular month. Is it going to rain throughout the year? It will be very difficult. If you give it well, it can show that this year the rainfall is going to be okay. It might be March. But the March rainfall, it is not throughout uniformly distributed. It might be concentrated in a particular month. So if we package that information in the particular period where rainfall is supposed to occur, the way we are doing it right now, on a 3-month basis, that is where a farmer can pick it very well. Because within 3 months, the accuracy of the projection is higher than a 1-year projection. So farmer can plan for that one so well compared to the 1 year's projection. Thank you.
Oh wow, well spoken, well articulately put in terms of the fact that it's easier to have a 3 months projection. It's better for the farmer and for us as individuals in this country who are relying on better weather patterns than having a 1-year projection or a 5-year projection. So that's very clear from the Meteorological Authority. The discussion on climate change and its effects continues here on Issues at Hand on your Church of Uganda Family TV, and you can be a part of this discussion by sending us a WhatsApp message on our WhatsApp line. That's 0787 447 684, 0787 447 684. We are here at your disposal. Please ask our guests any questions, and we shall get into your comments and questions as well. We shall ably answer them, and we shall continue on this conversation. But let's first go in for a quick breather, because it's cold in here and we need to raise the temperature a bit with a bit of coffee.
Issues at Hand on Family TV. Enriching lives.
Thank you for rejoining us here on Issues at Hand, and this is the time when we get to hear from you, our viewers. What questions do you have on climate change, on what the Meteorological Authority does? Please feel free to ask any questions, and feel free to send your comments. We shall answer them appropriately, or should I say my guests shall answer them appropriately. But talking about the authority and its mandate, take us to the challenges that the authority is having when it comes to the mandate of weather forecasting and early warning, especially when it comes to the issue of climate change.
Okay, thank you. Obviously, all institutions of government, they have challenges, but they are working hard at least to minimize the challenges. So if I'm to go to this authority, that is the National Meteorological Authority, we have some challenges. Challenge number one normally comes with finances. That is the one key thing. Well, our budget, sometimes there is a lot of cut in the budget because we can plan our activity so well for the whole financial year. So you find because of the budget cut, government is also in crisis in facilitating meeting the needs of some other areas. So that's where this cut normally come. It will make us not be in a position to do some of the things that can really be felt by the lower person at the grassroots. And also we have another challenge is the community themselves, reaching them is becoming a big problem, which is also attributed due to the finances. You know, Meteorological Authority is supposed to serve the whole country. And if you look at the Meteorological Authority, it is, well, we have stations across the country, and those stations, they are collecting data. And the data they are collecting, there are some other places which are not without our meteorological station because of getting the money to buy this equipment and install it there. So we can now make a representation of a particular station to take care of a nearby. In that, you find that when we are in giving the information to the public, now this information has to, because we have to work in the, like, the Central Meteorological Authority, which is within the city, has to move all over the country and make sure that the information reaches the community. And like when you look at some other government departments and agencies, they are, because they are big, and they have some other line department in the district local government, so services is very easy. So for us, because we are still limited in both the staffing level and also the finances, which is limiting us also to expand our staffing level, meaning reaching the customer, reaching our end users is giving us a lot of problem. But we are doing all best by doing this connection with government agencies, department, civil society organization, local government, and even the religious leaders and the media. The media are the key people, because the media, we have done so well by building their capacity. After building their capacity in how to interpret this particular information, they are now our key in sending this information to the public. Then there are other challenges also. Of course, you know, generating this forecast product needs high computing facilities, high processing computing facilities. So sometimes these computing processing facilities also need, we need many. Like currently what we have, we can generate, but it is also doing so well for the country. If we can expand this kind of thing, it means that we will be in a position to get more and more good product or addition there. Then other challenges is the community or the user of the climate itself. People are still not, they're like too slow in responding to disaster or the early warning information. And people are also less interested in taking the information from the weather. But when you find somebody has been hit by a disaster, then you find somebody start running, asking, oh, what had happened? What did you say? So that's the kind of thing which is still lagging behind in the kind of disaster which normally come and caught people off guard. But we are doing also one of the things that by trying to build the capacity of our farmers group, we have already gone beyond the local government, because we build their capacity. Now we are going to train the farmers group, the organized farmers group. We train them. After training them, then we give this information directly to them. So those are some of the few challenges we are going through, and we have many. My colleagues can add on to more. Thank you.
Yes, in addition to the problems that that George has put out, there are quite a number, like has said. You know, this is an institution that is supposed to operate countrywide, and we are serving quite a number of, you know, the categories of people that we serve, they are really diverse. You find that there are these farmers. For them, their question is, should I go to garden or should I wait? What should I plant? Those are the very simple questions, and that's what is interested in. But we also have the other high caliber of people, the PhD, the doctors, who will need to understand further that what are the causes. You know, we need to go ahead and tell them that we're going to have this kind of weather because of such and such systems that are in place. For example, I think some of the people who are receiving a forecast, they do get like Indian Ocean dipoles. You know, you hear us talking about sea surface temperatures, you hear us talking about El Ninos. So some people get confused, but you know, that is what we are meant to do, because it's supposed to serve a diverse, you know, kind of community and people with different perspective. So keeping it to that level, it's not really that easy. It's really very hard, but we're really trying so much as an authority. And I think government really realized that. And another issue, it is that issue we're talking about, the issue of climate change. It is really serious, and it has brought a lot of variations and really making a forecast so challenging that we're supposed really to move with the global, you know, the global current technologies, which are very costly. You know, George has talked about the IT equipment, the supercomputers. Now we've gone from having just mere servers or clusters to using supercomputers in order to run a forecast very fast and downscaled forecast at a timely manner. So, and amidst a lot of challenges of financial muscle, you find that the muscle of the finance is really low. And you know, sometimes you find that the government is not giving us priority. And yet, once this issue of early warning information generation can be addressed by government and partners, all the rest will be very easy to really to handle. You know, the issues of disasters, managing disasters, the issues of managing food security for the country, it can all be handled. And maybe one other issue is that also that these stations that George talked about that we need, there's high cost of maintenance. You know, you find that sometimes sensors are expensive to replace and maintain. You know, maintaining these stations, it is very expensive. So that's why really as an authority, we really have that challenge, and there are quite a number of solutions that probably we shall be giving. Thank you.
Fantastic, fantastic. And we continue to hope that especially the problem of funding and finances is tackled by the respective authorities, the government, the Ministry of Finance, and the Office of the Prime Minister, to ensure that the authorities' work is done properly, because we are in times where climate change is real, and if there is not enough funding to do the work the authority needs to do, then we are going to find ourselves in a big problem. Now, during the break, we spoke about how a lot of one of the main sectors when it comes to the work of the authority and climate and weather is the agricultural sector. How a lot of farmers call in and say, we are having a problem. What's going on with the weather? So can you sensitize the public? One, what is the authority doing on sensitizing the public concerning the weather changes and variations and climate change? And what would you like to let us know as members of the public concerning what the weather situation is now and what we should do to stave off this problem of climate change?
Okay, thank you. I know so many members of the public who do not know that they know Uganda National Meteorological Authority is in existence, and the one charged with the responsibility of giving the early warning information and also the forecast for the rain. But they find it hard. Where can we get that particular information? So I would like the public today to get it clear that we don't work alone. We work with all other sectors, like not only agricultural sector, we also work with disaster department, we also work with the Ministry of Health, we also work with water resources, because all of these sectors, they are affected by these weather-related disaster. Now, how can you get our information? There are so many ways by which you can get our information. One, people who are at the local government level, they can just go direct to the agricultural extension officers, because that is where always they get our information immediately we have generated. How do we send it to them? We normally send it through email. We have so many email addresses. Even we have individuals. There are farmers, there are large-scale farmers who have given us their email addresses. We also send it directly. Then we are also working in collaboration with some of the local FM stations, whereby once we have generated the forecast product, then they connect us live and we issue the information to them so that the public can get it right. And we are also working with some the NGOs and the CBOs who are working with the farmers, whereby they are directly and every day they are with them. So they get our forecast product, then they send it to them. That means you as a farmer, somebody who is at a grassroots level, if you want to know before you start planting, before you start preparing your garden, if you know that the rainfall season is approaching, if you find it hard to reach us, where can you get information from us? Please go to your agricultural extension officer in your district, because he has our information. If he doesn't have it at that particular moment, he has our contact. He can call us back, then he gets the information from us, then we send it to them. So that is how we always coordinate. Don't be left behind. Please plan with weather. If you leave the weather out, you will be caught surprisingly with disaster related to weather. Thank you.
Fantastic. And talking about the public, we have some questions from you, our viewers, and I'm going to ask Mr. Kalema to address this question, which is, what is the way forward for the National Meteorological Authority when it comes to weather guides and when it comes to adverting the calamities that we have seen, for instance, in Mbale?
Yes, when it comes to working on disasters, you know, before a disaster comes into, you know, being called a disaster, it always starts with a hazard, you know, and like George put it, more than 80% of disasters, you know, they are weather related, you know, and the best way to handle them is using the early warning information. So as the authority, you know, we're working so much in ensuring that we forecast these disasters at a timely manner and accurately. And as we know, the disasters, when it comes to disaster management, there are phases. You know, it all starts with preparedness, then a response, then a recovery phase, and you find that as the authority, we have a role throughout the whole chain of managing disasters. When it comes to preparedness, supposed to give this information so that people prepare in advance. You know, you prepare well knowing that, okay, there's going to be a flooded road, you know, or a bridge is going to be flooded. So that means if I'm to travel to maybe to cross that place, I need maybe to cancel my journey or postpone it, or maybe go earlier before this disaster comes in. And then when it comes to response, when they've happened, this Office of Prime Minister needs this information, and also the district leadership, you know, the disaster management committees, they need this information in order to ensure that they are not hit as they are trying to respond to these disasters. You imagine you're there trying to rescue people in a river, and then another flood comes in and claim more lives. So, and I also talked about the recovery phase, where people are supposed to recover from the negative impact. So you realize that this information will be very important in that people get back to their normal livelihoods. You know, now you get this information and now start maybe planning your agricultural output and get the maximum output, and that means when you have more output from your garden, it means more money in your pocket. So that means really we need this early warning information from the authority to ensure that all the disasters are well managed in this country. Thank you.
Fantastic. And that leads me to the last question for today, which I want you to address very quickly. And it's from Boambala Timothy from Mbale, actually, who asks, who is responsible for the climate wrath and death? Is it the weather department that sounded no warning to the masses, or is it the Wananchi themselves?
Thank you. That is a very interesting question. Who is responsible in climate change and climate variability? There is that question also. Who is responsible for the climate change and climate variability over the world and the country? So the answer is all of us. We are the one responsible for the climate change and responsibility. Now, when we talk about this particular disaster which has happened in Mbale, who is responsible? All of us, we contributed. Number one, I need to be very clear, and people should get it right. Number one, if you look at how the thing happened in Mbale, Uganda National Meteorological Authority issued that early warning information in time. But did the people respond to that? There was no response. So, who is the problem in responding? I leave that question to the viewers. Number two, if you look at where that water was coming, what happened? We need to do a lot of investigation to find out from the top of the mountain what happened there, which has increases the flow velocity of the water. Because there was heavy rainfall, then the flow velocity of the water increases. By the time it comes down, it could not be controlled. Now, what happened at the top of the mountain? That could be also one of the factors which resulted into this massive death in Mbale.
We shall end with those questions. The question is, who is responsible? And I think the answer is that we are all responsible. And I would like to thank my responsible guests, that's Mr. Kalema Abubakar and Mr. William George, who are from the Uganda National Meteorological Authority, for coming here on Issues at Hand to answer these questions on climate change and its effects in Uganda. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for joining us here on Issues at Hand on Church of Uganda Families TV. Now you know what the Uganda National Meteorological Authority does, and you know that we all have a role to play when it comes to fighting the problem of climate change. God richly bless you.
The views expressed on this show are not necessarily those of this television or its management, but as of individuals as we hear them. Family TV, enriching lives. This is Church of